This is Kevin Addix, Director of the Maryland Wineries Association, and we've got a very special guest. All of our guests are very special, but this one's pretty cool because he's dragging a lot of gold medals in with him. Would like to introduce Mike Lentini from Catoctin Breeze Vineyard. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
So, first, Mike, tell us what's your background? How did you make it to Catoctin Breeze?
So it was actually about as informal as this is supposed to be. I started out making wine in my basement. It was a hobby. It's where Wojtek, the owner of Catoctin Breeze, and I kind of share interest. Is it kind of both stemmed out of a hobby. I started making wine at 21. That was about 15 years ago, and then I ended up about 25 years old. Ended up in a winemaking program. Met Wojtek through finding a winery that was not open to the public. I figured they were probably looking for a winemaker, so I sent a resume over. We interviewed, we talked, we had similar goals. We were both looking to make high quality wines, old world style, traditional vinifera, and we had a lot of ideals the same. So we ended up working, and it's been a great journey so far. We've pumped out some serious great wines, and we're just happy to keep doing so.
There I am off mute. So you mentioned serious great wines. You're not kidding. So you've made some incredible wines. Some wines that have won 2 of our competitions and been contenders in many others. So tell us a little bit about what you're thinking when you make wines. Are you thinking I'm going to make wines that crush it in the competitions, or are you?
No, actually, I don't worry about the competitions. This sounds crazy, but they're a really nice side bonus. What I'm really focused on when and our focus runs deeper. We're a small crew. We're 3 guys full time and a couple of seasonal helpers. And we really just focus from the beginning of the season to growing the grapes and getting the highest quality fruit we can and turning those into the best wines we can. And really the focus for us isn't so much the competitions, it's our customers. They're our fan base, they're our bread and butter every day, and we're looking to just make the best wines we can for the people who enjoy, the classic European style dry wines. And our focus when we're making wine is just to do the best job we can, the highest quality product we can produce. We're a minimalist style of production, so we do very little additions. We don't dive into a whole lot of there's a million products on the market that you can use for your wines. We try to focus on a more natural approach. We try to enhance everything in the vineyard, and our goal is to start producing the best wines we can in March, April, when the buds and the plants start growing, and we really start considering quality there. It's a huge part of our estate wine production, and the guys that we have, even our seasonal help, they work rows with those of us that are there full time. We go into detail with how we want the vineyard managed. And it's an age-old statement that good wine begins in the vineyard, and we're firm believers in that.
We got a rather biased comment here from Adam Fazita.
I see that.
Catoctin Breeze rocks.
I see that. I'm gonna have to tell them about this app here, or this function when we get done.
Yeah, we should talk about it. We love this this StreamYard app. So you mentioned European style wine. So generally, when I hear that, we're talking drier Bordeaux style. But you're also great stuff with Syrah, and you're doing stuff with Barbera and beautiful red blends.
Well, when I say European style wines, I'm talking, classic vinifera varietals. Even Barbera originated in Italy. So that dry style is originated in Europe, and also because a lot of those vines were brought to the States later. So that's really what I'm talking about. But all of our vinifera styles that we're the most proud of and our award-winning stuff is all Maryland based, which is what I brought today to feature to you guys. You guys have seen the bottle of Chardonnay. So we're going to do 2019 Chardonnay grown on our site. We are going to do our 2019 Rosé, which was grown in Virginia. Not necessarily a Maryland wine, but close neighbor. They're 45 minutes from us. I'll give a shout out to Doug Fabioli on that one for quality fruit and a great wine. Then we're going to do our 2018 Estate Cab Franc, which I chose strictly because 2018 was a difficult vintage. And I kind of wanted to show that we still managed to produce a really nice wine in a very tough year. 2018 was really hateful as far as weather, and some of our quality can be attributed to Mother Nature cooperating most of the time. But I picked this wine to show how our viticulture practices and our winemaking practices can impact a wine in a bad year where Mother Nature doesn't necessarily cooperate. And then lastly, our Syrah, which is a much disputed grape for us to be growing in Maryland. And but the wines are fantastic and we love them. So we have a really neat lineup to run through, and all of them we can talk about really interesting terroir aspects about our operation.
I love that. And those are all phenomenal wines. So thanks for bringing such a lineup. And we were talking before we went on air that my only beef with it is that I'm not there in person to enjoy it. So I have to save me some.
Like I said, next time we'll do it at the winery.
Absolutely. So can we jump into some wines and we'll talk as we go?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So as you're opening that, I noticed a couple of different label styles. What's the significance in the label distinctions? So
our butterfly labels distinguish our estate wines. And I'm apparently having wine opener issues, which is ironic. Our butterfly labels are all of our estate grain wine, while the musical labels are not necessarily estate grown, but we have a grower in St. Mary's County that provides a lot of fruit to us. And we have another grower in Manchester, Maryland that provides a lot of fruit to us. So we use the different labels to kind of delineate our stuff from everybody else's. Give me just a second for a wine opener.
Always have a spare wine opener, right?
I got it right here. My main guy, this guy, these are great. These are the rabbit openers.
Yep.
These things are fantastic. Mine just seems to not be cooperating at the moment, so we'll go old school and waiter corkscrew it. For anybody watching that does not know how to use these, quick tutorial. Goes like this. Got a couple of spots here to push the cork up. And like so.
Industry standard right there.
Industry standard. This is what we use at the tasting room.
So
only because these are expensive.
Well, they're expensive and they work dreamy until they don't. So what year is the Chardonnay?
So we're going to do 2019 Estate Chardonnay. The interesting thing about our Chardonnay is the development in the style. We've been working on this for a while. We used to do a little more malolactic than we do now. We used to do some oak contact, which we don't necessarily do anymore. It's more crafted around a Chablis style Chardonnay. But early on in my professional career, I found some information where some of the Grand Cru producers in Chablis did barrel fermentations in neutral oak, and then stuck with the nice rigid acidity, the stainless steel aging, the lack of oak introduction to the Chardonnay style. So we kind of played on that. We have, in the last few years, eliminated malolactic fermentation mostly. We do our fermentation in oak. It's brief. It's about 7 to 10 days at most. And then from there, we rack it into neutral vessels. We do a very light malolactic now only if we need it. If we feel the acids are too sharp, we'll introduce bacteria and soften the edges a little bit, and then stop it by taste, which is by far the best part of the job. We get to taste all the time. So this style of Chardonnay is it's crisp, it's fresh, lots of honeydew, lots of nice green apple, very crisp acidity. And our whites and our rosé are built around the idea that we have a lot of outdoor seating. People enjoy our wines in the summer outside. They're great wines for the environment.
Yep.
So, but like I said, it's got lots of honeydew melon, some pear, some honeysuckle. It's a great wine, actually. Cheers.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll hold up my Chardonnay from another Maryland winery, but still
Maryland wines.
Yeah.
And I'll hold it up here so you can see we do filtration on our wines. They're on our whites anyway. Our reds are unfiltered. The whites we filter down clean. I'll hold that up for the Zoom. This we just released in March, and we're already almost sold out of it. So it's been pretty popular, even though we haven't been open for, on-site consumption until last weekend. But the people who received it in their release, it was received well. They loved it, and it's by far probably my favorite Chardonnay that we've made yet. And the interesting thing for me about it is that there's not so much fruit on the nose. It's a lot more of that minerality, complexity to the white. But once you taste it, you get the really subtle. There's some really subtle vanillas from the oak. It ferments in French American hybrid barrels, French heads, American staves. They're all neutral. They're either 3 years older, 3 years old or older. And we've really found kind of a stride with this process. We did a reserve Chardonnay that turned out extremely well with a little bit of oak exposure to these neutral French American hybrid barrels. And once you get it on the palate, it is just honey and honeysuckle and green apples all day long. And we were really early on in the stages of production. It was already showing its character and its potential, and we were so excited to get this filtered and bottled. And as soon as it released, the reception it got was definitely worthy of the wine. We're very proud of the year we had last year, and a lot of good hard work went into this wine. So
yeah, I haven't tried the 19, but your prior Chardonnays have all been top.
18 was a good year. We had a little disease in the vineyard, downsides of being an agriculture industry. It happens, but so we didn't quite get the volume we wanted, but it was still a good wine. It was solid. The 19, we kind of rebounded a little bit. And if you haven't had it, get out to the winery and try it, because we're down to less than 10 cases and it's going to be gone soon. So
as you dive into that next wine, tell us, you guys are back open?
We are. We reopened for outdoor service last weekend, which was exciting. It was well received. We had a lot of people really excited to get back and visit the winery and pick up the new wines that have come out. It's been a long time since we saw our loyal fan base, and we miss everybody. So it was great seeing everyone, and it was great seeing the reception on Facebook, and reactions to us reopening were just awesome. It was overwhelming. I don't think any of us thought we'd ever be here when we started this venture. It's been I've been with them since 2012. But the venture for them started with planting in 2010. So, we all kind of had the vision, but it's a little different when you're actually living it, which is incredible.
Yeah, I remember walking the hill with Wojtek and Alicia way back when, trying to figure out how this whole thing was going to unfold, and I have been so amazingly impressed with everything about the winery, from the wines, but also to the building and the architecture of the building and the history of the doors that are in there. And all right, so this looks like Romance Rosé.
It is indeed. Let me twist that a little bit so you can see these lovely labels designed by Lisa. So our Romance label has developed from a blend of red wines to our rosé label, and the transition has been fun. We got to a point where we decided we wanted to march forward with a not necessarily traditional rosé, but a rosé style wine. And the reason I picked this is because it's so much fun. It's 100% Chambourcin, which is my favorite part about it. There's a little scrutiny hanging around Chambourcin, which is fine. It's stylistic, but we found it has a wonderful presentation in rosé. It carries a lot of really nice strawberries. It almost, with the acidity involved, has this raspberry strawberry sorbet kind of feel to it. And when it's chilled and it's hot outside, it is the wine that I take home the most from the winery. It is a fantastic wine. We've had great results with it. We're transitioning our Chambourcin to a Maryland supplier. But this came from, right next door to us, Doug Fabioli in Virginia, 45 minutes away. So it's not unlocal, which we really try to stick to local growers and whatnot. It's part of our business plan, our mantra, our style, so to speak. We like terroir. We like the local. We're in a nice, if I could call it an AVA, it would be a nice little AVA for the Blue Mountain running down into Virginia. There's a lot of really great fruit grown. We have great weather, and they did a great job harvesting our fruit specifically for rosé style. So in this, we have a really, really nice acidity. It was picked a little early. We picked it just under ripe so that we still had the alcohol content, and we got the acids with it, because traditionally in the East Coast, the higher sugars rise, the acids kind of bomb out. So we got plenty of berries in this. I mean, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. You got a little bit of lemon in the tartness from it. It's an incredible summer wine. And it's part of our label series that is not the Butterfly. This is our composer series. So Romance is actually a musical piece by Chopin. And each of our musical series wines are tied to a specific composer. They are also tied to a specific music piece that is famous from that composer. So a lot of time went into the consideration for our label design also. And it's kind of a fun side. We drank wines and tried to associate musical pieces with the wine, so we got to drink a little bit in the process. You can see the color. It's nice. It's light. Maybe just a touch dark for rosé, but that's a part of Chambourcin. And our rosé production is pretty basic. They pick it, we sit on it for 24 hours, and then we press it the very next morning early to make sure we don't get too much color. And then through the fermentation process, we lose a little bit more, and we try to balance somewhere right in here. It looks darker in the bottle than it does in the glass. It's the deception of volume. So
one of the things I love about Chambourcin is the rosé it makes. So it makes this really, really, I mean, you talk about the acid, but the color of a Chambourcin rosé is just stunning. So
Oh,
yeah,
I love it. And it's so rich in color to begin with as a fruit that, like I said, we don't even have to mess with it. We have them pick it from the vines. We leave it sitting on our refrigerated truck overnight, and that 12 hours is just enough time for the skins to bleed into the wine, and we get the color that we're shooting for. So we've had really great results, and we're really happy with the Chamberson the way it's been panning out for our rosé style.
so Kara just gave you a glowing endorsement,
I see that.
but
Hi, Kara. How are you?
there's an asterisk. She enjoyed the 2 bottles with friends, so that's
Yeah,
good.
trying to justify it. I see.
Yeah, that's okay. We all have
She's
days.
a wine club member, and she's a frequent visitor of the winery. So,
Good.
and a barrel sponsor also. So
That's great.
yeah.
Mike, pull that label back up again, because you mentioned the line drawing and Lisa. Tell us about Lisa. This is Lisa Gorham, right?
Yes, Lisa Gorham. So Lisa has since our introduction to her in the beginning of the label development has branched out onto her own, but she has done amazing things with our labels. She designed the butterfly labels. She's designed all of these labels. As we're moving forward into our barrel fermented program, she is developing us a new label, which will be coming out hopefully next year, along with the barrel fermented wines, which we're so far unofficially leaning towards a black label for our high end product. But she does amazing work. Any wineries that are watching right now, I highly recommend you check her out. She has also very adaptive, as we developed wines and we developed reserves, she's come up with a reserve label that you'll be seeing this year. It'll be coming out hopefully. We're looking sometime between our July and September release. So she developed a very custom reserve sticker that fits our label style, looks nice with all of our packaging and stuff. She has done an amazing job, and packaging is important. It's one of those things that people see it, they remember it, and it's just, I'm guilty of it myself. I walk into a store and I'm like, oh, that's a cool label, and I pick it up and I check out the bottle and I read the information about it. So it's an underrated or underestimated part of the business, and
Oh yeah.
she did awesome for us. So we are more than grateful for everything she's done.
I had a radio show with a nice gentleman for WBJC a couple years back, and we did a little study of the correlation between wine quality and quality labels. And we did 2 blind tastings, and people poured us the wines, and sure enough, the better wines had better looking labels.
Well, I think that reflects.
There's more thought. There's more thought going into it. You pick a great winemaker. You care about the vineyard. You also happen to care about the look and how you're going to present it. So there is a correlation. Sounds strange.
Absolutely. No, I don't think it's strange. I think it's an absolute necessary correlation when you care about your product and you care about your business, and more importantly, when you care about the consumer base that you're targeting. You care, and we care because I work private events. I'm at the winery sometimes on the weekend, and nothing is more gratifying than hearing your customers sit there and tell you, oh man, these wines are fantastic. We love it year after year. You guys don't disappoint, like I just saw in the comments. Those things feel good, and you want your consumer to have that feeling about your business. And it directly correlates to what you were saying about caring about everything. And when you care about it that much, you don't leave out the little details. And the little details are your packaging, your tasting notes. You take the time and you care about those things, and that all reflects in your finished product.
100%. So you are leading us to this next beautiful wine.
Yes. So I chose this wine specifically, like I said at the beginning, because 18 was a horrible vintage. There are a lot of wineries that didn't even make red wines. Our vineyard practices allowed us to be prepared for the bad weather, which is why we we're friends with Jim Law at Linden. We were down there. They didn't make any red wines in 2018. Everything they had red wine, red grape wise, they pressed into rosé. And because it was a tough year, lots of rain, lack of sunshine. Mother Nature definitely didn't want to cooperate. But I picked this because we chose viticultural practices that impacted our finished product, and I felt like that was important to show, and for consumers to understand that vintage variation is a thing where we live. It's not California where it's hot and warm all the time, and you can produce killer wines year after year. We face challenges. We face hurricanes. We face rain. We face 3 months with you know barely a dozen days of sunshine, but through care in the vineyard, which I said earlier, wine quality starts there. We were able to produce a red wine. Now I want to specify in that we produced about 30% of the volume that we should have, but we were able to make some red wine, and we made a quality red wine, and we're proud of that. Yeah, we lost most of our crop to the rain and whatever, to our fruit thinning and needing to cut out rotten fruit and whatnot, but we managed to craft 50 cases of a nice red wine in a very terrible vintage. So I wanted to pick this and show it and kind of highlight it and talk about it a little bit, so that as people visit the winery, maybe they think twice about passing on it and grab it and check it out, because it is definitely worthy of a taste.
I can't tell you how many wineries I heard just were not able to figure out what to do with the fruit that they did get in 2018, and yet there were some wizards out there who come December, January said, "But wait, we actually have some that worked out." And like you said, it was a fraction of the volume, so it might have 20%, 30%, but still they were able to make some good wine.
And I don't know if it's so much wizardry. I would like to paint the picture that it's magic,
Right.
but it's not so much for us. It was just meticulous practice. We fruit thinned. We went through knowing that the weather wasn't gonna support ripening the full crop load. We knew that early, so we made an early pass through. We started cutting off anything that was way behind everything else, which gets into some nerdy plant stuff, but it allows the energy to go to the fruit that's already there, which is why we got ripe before it rotted, which is the only important fact for the consumers out there. The other side of that is we cleaned it. We took time. We were grateful that we had a huge outpouring of volunteers from our wine club to help us harvest that day, because it is the biggest block in our vineyard. So I think we had 10 to 15 people in addition to our regular staff out there helping us, and through careful instruction and patience on their part, definitely, we taught them, how to cut stuff out, how to trim the fruit, and they did a great job harvesting only the premium stuff for us. So it's a great wine, but without the support we had, and the knowledge to realize that we weren't winning the battle with the weather for the year, we just went ahead and ate the loss on the volume and tried to just put out a quality wine. Cab Franc has been our flagship since the beginning, and we really we baby it, I think, a little more than the other varietals. We love it, and our club members love it, and it shows well in Maryland, and we're really trying to highlight that it is the Cab for the East Coast. So we pretty worried about it in 18, and the extra care, I think, we were all scared. About halfway through, we transferred it into brand new oak because we realized it wasn't carrying the body and the structure that it needed. Initially, we put it in older barrels because we weren't sure. We didn't know how to handle it because it was
an unprecedented year. Yeah, I mean, it was nobody really knew how to deal with it. So
I did have the professional pleasure of sitting down with Jim Law for an event at his winery right after harvest for that year. And he told me that he is in his 40th, in 2018, he was in his 40th vintage as a winemaker, winery owner, whatever. And he said that 18 was the worst year he has ever seen historically.
Yeah.
So it was truly unprecedented for the industry to see those conditions. But we managed to turn out a really nice wine. It doesn't have the full body and the structure that our typical cabs do, but it came through with a lot of really nice ripe berries, some fig, a lot of nice showing from the oak. As you know, we're big advocates for American oak.
Mm-hmm.
So and I've been finding through the years that we're less common than that as far as the oak choice goes. Most people kind of lean away from the American. We kind of lean into it. We found that the big oaky, smoky notes are great.
That it works for your style of wines.
Well, but we balance them also with some older barrels, and we have through our cooperage, they have some hybrid barrels that are mixed French American, and then we mix in a little bit of Hungarian with the cabs, only in the cabs because it works the best in those varietals. So we kind of started tracking our barrel composition and finding what works, and I attribute that to a lot of the wine quality also, because professionally I feel that barrel composition is the most underrated part of wine production. So I'm going to go ahead and enjoy this cab while we're talking.
You please enjoy the cab. Don't rub it in, man.
Well, I wanted to show the color more than I was rubbing it in. But so, a little light, not really. You've been at both award ceremonies. You've seen our typical cab concentration. It's not really that, but it is great. Typically, we release our cabs after a year of aging, if not two. We're about 18 months behind on releases. We moved this up in the release because it's a little light. It's fresh. It's got nice acidity, lots of nice young ripe fruit like strawberries, like I mentioned earlier. But it still has the structure. It's not, I wouldn't say medium body, but it's just under that in the light medium category. And considering the vintage and the conditions of the year, it's a wine that we are absolutely proud to have produced.
I'm anxious to try it because I've been shocked by the 18 reds that I've tried. The whites have been good. The rosés have been good. The reds, I just had very, very low expectations, and the wineries who were skilled enough to create a wine and brave enough to release it, the wines have been really good. They're very different than what you would expect, with your theme of, bigger wines and all that fruit, but still, super good. You mentioned the competitions. I did want to maybe ask if you could explain what was going on here.
So the first year we won the Comptroller's Cup with our 16 cab Franc. I'm pretty sure it was the Caps who had just won the Stanley Cup.
Right.
And Adam, who is the gentleman in the red shirt with the beard, also is Wojtek's son. He does a lot of our marketing. Some of the wine club people watching might recognize him from the videos. We had kind of been joking that we were going to pull an Ovi and pass the cup around, and then it happened. and I think we were more surprised at how many people went along with it.
Oh yeah, I've it looks like I've got 22 photos of different people sipping from that cup, all pre-COVID, of course.
Yep. And a great story with that for us as a small winery was two of our wine club members who had been with us. They're part of what we call our Founders Club, so our original 75 members. They actually randomly stopped in to pick up their wine club release, had no idea the event was going on, and walked into people handing them the cup to drink out of. And I've had them for a few tastings, and they still talk about it.
Never turn down the opportunity to drink from the cup.
No, especially when it's a big crystal cup and the place passed on what was it, a Tuesday or a Wednesday?
Random Tuesday at 2:00. Yeah.
Right. So, but they really enjoyed the experience, and it's little things like that that we carry with us going forward.
Oh,
We
sure.
we love that small customer experience. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
So
great to have shared that experience. All right, so this looks like the Syrah,
this is our Syrah.
and this
So
is 2017 estate.
17, yes. Because unfortunately, while we managed to salvage 18 Cab Franc, we were unable to salvage our Syrah. It ripens just a touch earlier than the Cab, and when it comes in fast. And we went through it. You can see in my face that it pains me to still talk about this because we went through and harvested. We cleaned it. We sorted it. We even we inoculated it. We went down to fermentation, and about 4 days into fermentation, I was doing our punch downs, and I opened the container, and I told our vineyard manager to pack it up on the tractor and take it out to the compost pile because it just there was so much rot with the rain and so much unideal fruit that we just couldn't pull it back. So, and another point to what I said earlier, that quality wines begin in the vineyard. That is so crucial to good quality production. So, aside from that, this has been kind of a bane for us at our winery. Um, and as I have traveled through Maryland and talked to other vineyards and other producers and specifically other people who have attempted Syrah, they all have the same problem that we do. We lose vines like crazy. They're super prone to disease. They don't like the cold weather, which in southern Maryland, East Coast, really bad combination of things. But we've made the decision that we like the wine so much that we've just continuously been replacing the vines. And as of now, our plan is to continue to do so and produce top quality Syrah in the state of Maryland. Personally, it's definitely up there with my favorite wines we produce. I absolutely love it. We get a lot of great depth. It's probably in terms of body and structure, the biggest red wine that we can achieve from our vineyard site. And I mean, even our vineyard practices in the cab, only in really exceptional years can we get the body quality that we get out of the Syrah. And our customers like it too, so we feel our decision to keep pushing forward with it is a good investment. It's just a pain in the vineyard. We struggle with it a lot, but the wines it produces are great. This is 2017, so you can see how
There's
really
color.
rich,
Yeah.
really rich. I can black out my face with it and the whole label. It turned out to be 17 overall, was a fantastic vintage for everything. But the Cab and the Syrah really excelled that year, and we get great notes of red currants in this. The thing I like about Syrah is a varietal characteristic of it is white pepper.
Yeah.
Typical, Cab Franc, Cab Sauv, they have the spicy black peppercorn notes, but Syrah is that more subtle white pepper. So it's got a little bit of a spiciness to it that I like, and it still carries all those really nice heavy red fruits, the red currants, the cassis. In this vintage particularly, I get not ripe strawberry, and I say that only because of the acidity, but like strawberries you picked maybe a few days before they were totally ready to go. So you get that fresh, young red fruit along with the really heavy dark fruits like the red currants. And the oak introduction in this is most of our estate reds are strictly French and American. The Cab will occasionally get a Hungarian barrel, but typically we found that French and American really complements the style of wine, especially for our region, our terroir, and the notes and the flavors that we seem to get from our site.
Mike, you mentioned earlier your barrel fermentation program. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that does to a wine? Because you're doing some whole berry in there. Man, I want to drink that. Seeing your face.
Oh man, this is so good. 17 was a great vintage. And I don't know if you remember, but at the 16 award ceremony, I think it was yourself and me and I believe Leral from what is now Courteau. We were in the cellar and we were tasting the 17 cab, and I told you it was going to beat the 16.
Yep.
So it was just a phenomenal year. And when Mother Nature cooperates like that, you got to be grateful and you got to take it in. But the barrel fermentation program for us, we launched a trial run 2 years ago. That barrel, the single barrel that was our trial run, we'll be releasing to our wine club and barrel sponsors sometime this summer. We're loosely looking at, like I said earlier, between July and August, September, somewhere in there. But the program went so well that last year we launched it into, I believe we did almost 50 barrels of barrel fermented production. And what we do is we, instead of destemming the grapes and fermenting them in large volumes, separate containers, whatever the stylistic production of red wine is at the particular winery. Ours is small lot production. We do it in 55-gallon drums. But instead, we bought special barrels. And if I was at the winery, I would love to walk you around and show you this, but more the reason to come out and check it out. We bought a special racking system along with special barrels that have ports in the heads that allow us to load the red grapes directly into the barrel. So all of our Maryland grapes and our estate grapes, Cab Franc, Syrah, Barbera, Petit Verdot, we did some barrel fermentation on all of those styles. And what we did is we filled the barrels with grapes. We fermented them inside the barrels. They go on the special racks that we roll 3 times a day. And what it has seemed to do, and I'm speaking loosely on this because this is new to us too. It's a style that the ownership picked up in Europe, and I am always on board to look for ways to improve our wine quality. So when they asked me if I was interested, I was 100% on board. It has seemed to cause oak integration much earlier in the wines. So we're finding that 6-month-old reds are drinking like they're 2 years old. The complexity, the layers, the depth, the integration of the oak, and since we're talking about it, just 2 weeks ago, we were tasting the 19 Cab Franc from that barrel fermentation program, and it is, I don't even have words for it. It was phenomenal. It was a whole nother level of wines that I wasn't even prepared to understand that we could make. So we're now looking forward to releasing these this upcoming, not 2020, but 2021. We're looking forward to releasing these and showing people what this style is. And the uniqueness about it is that technology has advanced to the point where in Europe, they take the actual heads out of the barrel, fill them, put the heads back in. It's a huge pain. A lot of people don't do it because it involves so much work. But the high-end producers are doing it because they've noticed this huge increase in quality in the wines. So the introduction of the ports in the head, making it easier to fill, was just almost kind of a sign for us to jump into this program. And the results we've had from our test run to our full-blown implementation were phenomenal. We're going to keep doing it. We are super excited to release these wines this upcoming year, and you should get by the winery to come taste these things, because Joe Fiola was just there last week and he was blown away by it. So
Joe has been talking about it, so that's great. So I'm curious, like, who the guy or gal was who said, "You idiots need to stop taking the heads out and just put a hinge on it and put a door on it." I mean, what an innovation! That was the first time I saw that was at your place, and it's like,
yeah, it was crazy. We actually saw them at a trade show Did we? No, actually, Wojtek saw them, or Adam, one of them, when they traveled to Italy last year. They saw the company, and then we reached out and contacted their sales rep here in the States, and we looked at the product. Mostly, it was actually the shelving company, and then they were like, "Oh, by the way, we make these barrels." And we looked at the barrels, and we were like, "That's fantastic."
It's no
And then
brainer.
we reached out to our cooperage, which is based out of Chile, and we were like, "Hey, we're getting these from these guys, but we've been doing business with you guys. You guys want to do this?" And they were like, "Yeah, we'll make them." So it's a spreading technology, which is great, because I know they're doing it in California. There's producers throughout the states that are doing this on a large scale like we are, but as far as I know, we were the first ones in the area,
Yep.
reasonable 4 or 5 states of an area to be doing it on the scale we are. And none of that would have happened through without the technology innovation from the cooperages. So it was great. It was a great technology, and I
And
I can't even
how
talk
many
about it.
wines?
We're
How
blown
many
away.
wines are being produced that way?
Um, so we did all of our Maryland stuff.
Okay.
Barbera, Cab Franc, our estate Syrah, and we did our PV supplier had a rough vintage, so we did an experimental barrel just to see how the varietal responded to it, which is a lot of what we're doing right now. We have no idea. We have an idea what we're doing, but we have no idea what the impact is going to be on our wine. So we're trying it in different varietals. We're kind of seeing how they respond to it, so that we can understand where to go forward with it. And we've learned that some respond better to it than others, and that's kind of the goal for this year, was really to find our way, so to speak.
Yep.
But the cabs, phenomenal. The Barbera response was outstanding. Um, we did some outsourced fruit with Grenache and Mourvedre, and the barrel ferment stuff is good, but we like the unbarrel fermented versions a little bit better. Uh, Simply because I feel like Grenache and Mourvedre varietally aren't meant to be oaked. So I think that played more into it than the process of barrel fermenting. But great results, cool process, way more work for me
Yeah.
and mostly my assistant. If he's watching this, Jimmy, you're awesome. So
Good job, Jimmy.
yeah, yeah. The first year was fun. We had no equipment, we had nothing. We were hanging over the press, armpit deep in barrels, pulling grapes out, and we've since made the process a little more efficient. But that, we've been sharing the technology and the style with other wineries in Maryland.
Yeah.
And it's not so secretive for us. We're just like, hey, if you guys aren't doing this, you should check this out. Look at these wines we're making. We're trying to raise the bar for Maryland wine across the board. And if that means we gotta share information with people, we're totally on board with that. So
Well, that's great, and that's part of the culture we're trying to create here, where that rising tide, everybody's making better wines. When one of you makes a better wine, you should share that. Man, I want that wine.
17. It was a clutch. I've been with the winery since 2012, and the only other vintage we've had like that was 15.
Yeah.
15 was killer. It was dry, it was hot, there was no rain. The cab just, oh, it was beautiful. And 17 is really, and as they age, they're starting to show just even better. And I haven't had this one in a while, so it's kind of a refresher for me.
Well, that wine has gotten a couple of likes on Facebook, so expect to sell some more of that.
Excellent. Well, we're almost out of that. We're almost out of the cab. We're almost sold out on rosé,
Oh, really?
which we're crazy grateful for. We could have, like I said earlier, we could have never imagined where we're at today. And being sold out of a wine when you're not even able to be open to the public is a reassuring feeling that we're doing whatever we're doing right. And for us, at least for me, as the guy pretty much to blame if things go wrong. I feel great about that, and we really we pour out a lot of effort into these wines, just like everybody else in Maryland is doing it right now. There's a lot of great wines being produced, but when Mother Nature cooperates, man, you just got to run with it.
There's nothing that holds you back when that happens.
No.
So Mike, as we wind down, what's in store? So what's coming out next? What can people look forward to? And I want to get people out there.
So like I said, we have a little thing coming up here sometime between July and September. We have had some spotty success with our Albarino, viticulturally, terroir, site, all related. So we started to get it under control last year. We found some solutions through talking to other vineyards and other winemakers, and our Viognier actually is, while I'm talking about it, falling into the very same category, where we've had very spotty releases. We haven't necessarily had them every year. We are about to release an exceptional vintage of Albarino. It is probably my favorite wine, my favorite white wine we have produced to date. It's right up there with the 19 Chardonnay. They're both neck and neck for my favorites as of now. But along with that, we're releasing the trial run I mentioned on our barrel ferment program, which was Cabernet Sauvignon. So they're going to be made available at the same time. They were both single barrel productions, very limited quantities, 25 cases of each. Those are the immediate up and comings to watch for. We just rolled out our 2017 Concerto, which for anybody watching will be in tomorrow's Facebook feed for the winery, for the wine club release. That is probably, that's not probably, it is my favorite Bordeaux blend that we have composed so far. It was a great vintage. All the wines that went into it were very full-bodied and difficult to blend together. It was also the most extensive blending session we had with a red wine. Normally we do about 20 variations. We did 43.
Wow.
To come up with that. So we really fought it and we struggled it, but it is a excellent wine. We only produced 164 cases of it, so it's going to sell out fast. It was, let me look here, 60% new and 40% used, which is about right on par for what we try with the reds. We try to keep at least 50% new oak, right, which is what I mentioned earlier, that big smoky tobacco oakiness, and it also helps with the structure. But right now, those are and like I said, the rosé. It's summer. It's hot. It's starting to get hot now. It's beautiful sitting outside. The rosé is amazing in those circumstances. So it's hard for me to pin down one. If I had to pin down a favorite wine, it'd be in our library. So that would be 17 Cab Franc all day. It's my favorite vintage since I've been making wine with these guys. So
that's the one that I have sitting in my cellar that I was contemplating whether I was going to open for this meetup, but I decided to hold on to it a little longer.
Should probably hold on to that just a little bit longer.
Just a little bit longer.
If you decide to drink it, I can probably hook you up with a replacement.
Or maybe someone drink it with me.
Yeah, exactly. We could do it. We're actually one of the things that you talked about up and coming stuff. This is big picture things in play. But the Cab Franc we've had success with. We're actually working on stockpiling enough vintages to do. We're hoping to do a 10-year run through Cab Franc at some point as an event. But we've kind of decided if we can get 6 or 7 continuous vintages in a row, we'd be happy with that.
Right.
But we're really looking forward to pushing an event where we can run people through, a good chunk of a decade of wines and show vintage variation, weather on the East Coast, how that all plays in, terroir, and talk about all these cool things with our customers face to face. Because we've really found that adding the engagement with the customers, they love it. And they have so many great questions, and some of them even with science backgrounds or biology backgrounds have really interesting questions that have sort of opened up the gateway for us to question things we were doing on our own. So it's been a great relationship, and we're trying to build the capacity to do events like that with our consumers and really get into the nerdy stuff. So I'm looking at the comments.
Yeah, Kara is one bottle or two, Kara? We'll go with one bottle. We'll go with one bottle. I may hold on to mine for a little bit longer. I was telling someone the other day that I like my wines fresh rather than really aged. So I try to find that point where it's got enough age on it that it's evolved and opened up, but not starting to taste like an aged wine. And so
I can agree with that.
I'm a little fussy when it comes to that.
Point.
To a point.
To a point. I get the question a lot at the winery, especially when I'm talking to members or barrel sponsors, and they're picking up stuff, and they're like, mostly reds, how long should I age this? And I tell people, I'm like, my honest opinion, and it is just that, an opinion, is that East Coast wines, and our stuff from a stylistic standpoint, right, as my production goes, we're not designing these wines to age for 25 years.
Right.
That's just not what we're doing. Right. The weather's not really cooperative like that either, although they do it in France, but I feel like they have a little less humidity than we do traditionally. So we're styling our wines specifically more towards the whites are immediate consumption. The reds are, I like to joke that it's halfway immediate consumption. I tell people 4 years, 8 max. Yeah. Don't go over that. Yeah. And into that is some insight. Our corks are rated for 7 to 10 years. So, there's, right, when you're trying to explain things like that to people, there's other variables involved. But we recommend, and we found that most people drink our wines immediately. Right. Right. They're not aging them. They're grabbing them. They're opening them within a year. Our whites, we actually kind of shifted everything to a little fresher, a little more acid, so that they're meant to be drank right away. And that's kind of where we're at with things. I like a nice aged wine, but the oldest wine I have on my rack downstairs is a 2008 Petit Verdot, King's Family Vineyard in Virginia.
Yep. That's a good one.
Yep, and I met their winemaker, and he told me it was the best vintage of PV they made, and I should hold on to it. So it's the only reason it's still there.
You got to drink it at some point, though.
Point. I'll give it 10.
Okay.
Which we're slightly past now, but the person I would drink it with is pregnant, so we'll.
You gotta wait. You gotta wait.
We'll drink it in August. So.
I love it. Well, Mike, thank you for joining us. I learned a lot, and we got some great comments and some promises from Kara to drink wine together. So look forward to getting out there soon. And
hey, we're like the rest of Maryland. We're happy to see our people coming back. We missed everybody, and we're just great that everybody is healthy and safe. And we will see you guys at the winery.
Well, with that, Mike, thank you very much for everybody who has watched us and joined us. Thank you so much for doing it. This is going to be archived on Facebook and YouTube, and we're joining you again next Wednesday for another Wine Wednesday. With that, cheers.